Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jorvik and welcome to episode 5 of Fandom Friendly, the show where we talk about all things fandom. We're continuing our discussion. I'm joined with my good buddy Rafael. He's the co-founder of our previous film production company, 917 Media House, which I think I don't think I discussed it with you, but I would love to have you on. When I hit 1,000 subscribers, one of the things I wanted to do was watch some of our old stuff and like
Oh
react to
yeah.
it. So I think if we could hit that 1,000 subscribers, I'm less than 400 away. So if you
Oh,
like
you're
this
getting there.
show, yeah, I'm getting there. So if you like this show, you like this format, you like what we discuss here, consider subscribing, liking, that whole jazz. So Rafael, how are you doing today, bud?
Doing all right. Enjoying the weather. Watching very interesting trailers today.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
video
we're
game trailers.
yeah we're gonna be talking about it. It's gonna go into our discussion for this episode, and that is video game adaptations. So most recently, let's just throw some news out there first. We were recording earlier the previous episode, episode 4. You guys mentioned to me that there was a Minecraft trailer that came out for a movie. I have not watched it yet. I'm actually going to do that separately on the channel. So if you don't want to miss that, again, click that subscribe button.
It's
So
very weird.
yeah, you told
I
me it's
don't
like a
I
fever dream.
No,
And
that's what John had said.
yeah, one of you guys has
So
said that.
okay, so it's live action
Mm-hmm.
kinda. So the actors are live action. So there's Jason Momoa, there's a couple other actors, and they're real, like you and I. But the Minecraft world, the animation or graphics, if you will, kind of look similar to that of we'll say Super Mario Bros. That kind of animation style.
Yeah, that
So
3D
it's
animation, colorful stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's still blocky and the same, just like it's like very textured blocky. So it's like, okay, that's I can kind of work with it. I'm just trying to keep an open mind. I have no idea what the story is going to be or how you'd even make the story unless it's supposed to follow like the ender. But it was even the game, it was pretty vague.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did
then they
I
got
about to
Jack
say?
Black playing Steve, the I guess the main character
Yeah,
of Minecraft, and it just looks. I guess again, I have no idea what direction they're going to go. I mean, I was never a big fan of Minecraft. I've played it, but
yeah. I was gonna
it was one
ask
of I
you
never
what
saw how
what
you
your
could
history is
make.
with Minecraft is.
I
I
played a little bit of
have
it.
we played
I
together?
know,
Have we played Minecraft together?
yes, because you convinced me to get the game because I was supposed to get another game, but you convinced me to get it, and I played a little bit of it. Kind of messed around with a bit. You know, it's entertaining. I understand why a
Yeah,
lot of people
yeah,
gravitate towards it. Personally, not for me.
yeah.
But I can
I still
recall.
play it. Yeah.
But the thing I have with it, or my qualm, I guess, I recall watching this video, and it was this big streamer. He did a stream of this Minecraft playthrough that he'd done with some friends. Apparently, another YouTuber had taken that snippet of his gameplay, and he had made like a almost like a cinematic version of it, and he's using the dialogue cut straight from his own audio, and it's he's pretty much animating out what exactly everything that happened, but it was a lot more entertaining, and it was still the same Minecraft, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
graphics, but just a bit more polished and everything. And honestly, that was just some amateur guy, and that looked way more entertaining than what I saw in the trailer.
And
Like,
and
you
I
didn't
think
need live action people. You could have just had people voicing these
right.
Minecraft characters. Think of
And
the same with like the most recent trailer with Pharrell Williams. I thought he's doing a very interesting take.
yeah,
He's doing a
he's doing
biopic
it's a
of
Lego
him,
movie, but
and it's a
it's a
Lego
Lego
movie.
movie. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like I saw the trailer for that when I originally saw the first time I saw Deadpool and Wolverine. I was like, what is this? Is this a Lego movie? And then
Yeah,
yeah, but it's a Pharrell Williams biopic, and I think we'll come back to the discussion with Minecraft because when we talk about the game adaptations and something that we touched on in our the previous episode where we talked about the MCU, whether something deserves to be a series or something deserves to be a movie. And I think we have really good examples of TV series and really
Hmm.
bad examples of movies. Of course, we'll get into that. There's another.
Absolutely.
So, moving on from that, there was another trailer that I reacted to on the channel a couple weeks ago, but you just watched it, and that is Secret Level.
Yes. Yeah, literally just like 2 minutes before we even
Yeah,
started this, I watched it real quick. Very excited and hopeful. So I do like the anthology series. I think anthologies are very underrated, especially with
yes, I
certain
agree.
medias. I
I
think
agree.
they're extremely underrated, and I think they can be maximized because, like with Love, Death, and Robots, essentially, that's a show that never really has to end. It can always keep going as long as there's a creative
Right.
idea
In
to
theory,
in a
right?
story, yeah,
It'll
in
never
a
end.
story to
Yeah.
tell. And so they've done very well with the 3 seasons of Love, Death, and Robots. So I'm excited to see this take. And I noticed I caught some glimpse they're supposed to have. They got Warhammer, they've got Mega Man, they've got Armored Core, which was I'm excited to see how that's going to pan out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that'll be very well done. And they even have God of War. And that's also going to be very interesting. So I have very high hopes, and I
And
would like to see this.
it happens really quickly, but it's the version of Kratos from the current run of God of
Y-
War. His Norse.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
the Nordic side of it.
But yeah, no, I'm excited too. I mean, I gave my thoughts about it in that video. I mentioned too that I love anthology films, or anthology stories. I think the most prominent one that's been going on in live action, at least, is Fargo. That technically is anthology season. You can also American Horror Stories also
Yeah.
anthology seasons. So it can work. That formula can work, and in theory, like you said, that it could go on
And I think
forever. Yeah.
what makes it work too is that like it follow like his like not every story that's being told has to be stretched out until it's ruined. Breaking Bad got a bit lucky where they stretched it out for a lot of seasons and it still ended very well and it's still regarded as
Yeah.
good. But then you have other shows such as Game of Thrones. Granted, it followed the books up until the books weren't released, so they just kind of went with their own creative
Winged it.
minds, and
Yeah.
it's polarizing. Some people like it, some people hate it,
Have you
or you
have you
have
watched
something like
House of the Dragon? The prequel
Yes,
series?
and I'm not feeling it. Like I
I
watched the
really
first
like it.
season.
I
I
really
watched
like
the
the
first
first
season.
season.
It
Yeah.
was really good. I was enjoying it, and then I watched like the first 3 episodes of season two, and I'm not I'm kind of
I have
bored.
not watched season 2 yet. I was waiting for it to come out like fully. Because like we didn't mention it in the MCU video, but watching stuff week to week, it just sucks now. I mean, I don't know, maybe because we just got so used to binging
Yeah, we've been
everything.
spoiled.
We've been spoiled, and now that these shows are going back to releasing week to week instead of just dropping the whole season, I think is
So I know a lot of people
it's
will just
hard
wait until the whole
sometimes,
season's
especially
released, and then you
yeah.
just waste a day of your life and just binge watch all the
I
episodes,
mean,
and then
for
you're
the
done.
Disney, yeah, for the Disney Plus shows, it's whatever, you know. But for shows like House of the Dragon, or other HBO shows, like it's better to watch those shows consecutively because when you watch it week to week, you're just like, and then like Westworld, great. A little off topic, but Westworld, great example of that. Like I really enjoyed season 1. I think season 1 is solid. Season 2 dipped for me because watching it, that story is best told and you just watch it straight through instead of week to week. I think the week to week to me kills momentum of some of the shows, especially when you get to the later episodes where it's the finale episodes.
I don't know.
But
I think
anyways,
I think it depends. Like
yeah,
Last
it
of Us,
definitely depends.
I thought it was good how they did weekly because I recall whenever that was coming out, I would go after the episode come out. Me and my buddy at work, we would talk about that episode, what they might show next compared to the games and everything, and
Hmm.
that kind of just kept that going for the week. And then by the time the next episode comes, like it's still fresh and you're still excited.
So we'll talk about Last of Us in a second because it does pertain to the topic we're talking about this year. But before we dive into The Last of Us and what good video game adaptations are, let's talk about bad video game adaptations. Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Let's clear the elephant
Borderlands
in the
3.
room. Let's talk about Borderlands. Um, Look, so this movie came out what a couple weeks ago, I think, maybe last.
Yes. I think it's like early October, early mid August. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What a shame. I mean, it for
It
one,
physically hurt me. It physically hurt, almost
I
physically hurt
just
me.
I mean when a movie opens at 0% now, like I don't really go off the Rotten Tomato score because I know a lot of those can be skewed. You know, a lot of people like to
Yeah.
review bomb things or whatever.
You gotta look at the audience score.
But like, well, the audience score sometimes can be skewed because a lot of people review bomb them. You know, just Star Wars, Marvel. We'll talk about later. But it's just Borderland when it opens at 0% audience score, and then like 5% critic score. I mean, you're like, surely you're like, it can't be that bad, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because
I
here's the
feel
thing, like
like
me, like take it from me. I'm a huge fan of Borderlands. I've got three of their tattoos on my body. I have another
yeah,
good friend of
Borderland.
mine, Alex, also a stan. Yes, I've got three
Our other
Borderland
buddy
tattoos on
Noah,
my arm.
Noah also has a Borderlands tattoo.
And so I think from like the fans, we saw it coming because the only people that thought it was going to be there's a possibility of it doing good were people who probably never really played the game or were
Mm-hmm.
fans. But I know me and one of my best friends, we've logged 100+ hours on Borderlands 2. So I'd like to think I'm relatively qualified to speak on this movie that I haven't seen, nor
Did
do I
you?
believe I need to see it, honestly.
I don't know if you also saw, but Gamescom was from when Secret Level that trailer came out. They also announced Borderlands 4. Did you see that, or do you feel about that?
No, but I
Did
read
you
it.
play Tiny Tina's Wonderland, the recent Borderlands game?
No, I played I played Borderlands 2. I played Dungeon Dragon Keep. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the name of it, that Tiny Tita's DLC for
Yeah.
Borderlands 2. I played all those DLCs. I played the pre-sequel, and I'm about halfway through Borderlands 3, the video game. I haven't played the Tiny Tina's. I've heard mixed reviews on it
Yeah.
from a couple of my friends. I heard it's pretty mixed on how people's perception of it. I don't think I'll play it because even in Borderlands 3, it's a far cry from the original from Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and even Tales from the Borderlands. I'm seeing a lot of differences, and I think it's in part due why also the movie tragically bombed.
Yeah,
I think
and
first and foremost,
as the
hmm?
cast for me, I think the cast for me is what really, like. Don't get me wrong, I
So
love
as
Kate.
someone who's never played Borderlands, I'm going to explain to you what went wrong, mainly with the casting outside of just Kevin Hart. So we'll get Kevin Hart out of the way. What everybody's thinking: one, the man is too short to capture. One, not only is he too short, he's also not the type to capture Roland. For context, Roland in the game, he's about 6'2", 6'3". He's a
Yeah.
very tall, muscular, stoic guy. The game has comedic elements in the game. Roland is not one of those characters. He's always a very
Mm-hmm.
serious, stoic commander person. So he's a wall, if you will.
Yep.
So
Amanda
casting a
Waller.
5'4", yeah. If you cast a 5'4" comedian who's known for being funny at all times in any movie he's in, it's disingenuous. And this has to do with another point of all the video game adapted films that typically don't do well. They focus too much on star power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kevin Hart, he's big in the film. He's a big guy. So we'll get him. People are going to come see the movie for Kevin Hart, which I think is almost delusional in a sense. I don't know about you. There are movies I'm going to see, and if there's a good actor in it, I'll probably go see it because I'm like, huh, I do, yes, I do enjoy this actor. But also, if there's a bunch, if the movie just looks good, and there's maybe only one big name actor in there, I'm still going to go see that movie. Not because of that actor, but because the story looks very well done. So but I don't know, maybe I'm not part of the masses. I don't know. But first you have Kevin Hart. So we
Yeah.
got that out of the way. Next, you have Kate
Yeah.
Blanchett, who
As
plays,
Lilith.
yes,
Lilith.
Lilith.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't particularly have too much of a problem. I think it could have done better, but I also blame the director. I'm going to
Yeah,
blame the
which is
director as
Eli
far.
Roth, by the way. Crazy that he
Yes.
directed this movie.
Also, so keep in mind, so here's a little tidbit. I don't know if you knew. So I did some research, and what seems to be what happened is during the original writing of the script, I think it was Neil Druckmann, the guy who wrote Last of
Mm-hmm.
Us, had written the part of the original script for Borderlands. But then Eli Roth came along and he did so many rewrites that Neil Druckmann just said, yeah, I'm not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Dipped out, take my name off of it. So I wonder what it would have been like had Neil Druckmann did it. But that we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So you got Kate Blanchett playing Lilith. You have I don't know who played
It's
Tiny Tina.
her name is Ariana Greenblatt. I think most
Okay,
people will know her from she played young Gamora in Infinity War and Endgame.
okay, and then
She
you had the
also
person who,
played young Ahsoka in the Ahsoka show.
and then you had
I,
the person who played Krieg. Now I'm going to tell you what's wrong
his
with
name is
all of them.
Florian. Actually, I can just look it up. Hold on.
Anyway, while
Okay,
you look that up,
so we had Kate Blanchett as Lilith, Kevin Hart as Roland, Edgar Ramirez as Atlas, Jamie Lee Curtis as Tanis, Ariana
yeah,
Greenblatt as Tiny Tina, Florian Montanu, I probably butchered that, as Krieg, and then we had Knox, and we had Jack Black. I think this is the
it's
biggest one as
Claptrap.
Claptrap. Which,
Yeah.
look, I like Jack Black, but just get the original voice actor. Like,
Well,
cause
no, so they wouldn't. So I was doing some other research. So, and this has to do also why the original voice actor who was for Claptrap in the first two Borderlands, why he wasn't a part of three. There was a whole thing with I
yes,
think
yeah.
him and the CEO. So I don't think he wanted anything to do with it, or there's probably some
Well, I
conflictions
think
there,
I
conflict of
think if I
interest.
remember correctly, I think the so I don't remember. Let me look up his name because he deserves to be shouted out. Um, so the original voice of Claptrap, and yes, like the Borderlands 1, 2, and I think the pre-sequel, and then 3 he was replaced. Um,
Hmm.
uh, he um, he did it as like a favor, like he wasn't getting paid for that. I believe is what if I remember correctly from that whole drama. And then when 3 came around, they just recasted him without telling him, and he's like, "Yeah, I never got a call." And then I think there was a falling out
Hmm.
um, with like
Apparently, the
those.
CEO dude was like kind of abusive or whatever. But
Yeah, like
well,
again, I'm gonna have to do more research on that topic because I don't remember the full story behind that, but I think it was something along those lines is what it was. I'm looking up his character. His name was
so
David Eddings. Was the first 4 Borderland games, and they replaced him. Oh, and then there was a guy named Jim Ferranda who did the Borderlands 2 VR. Yeah, so he was replaced. Borderlands 2. Following a public falling out between Eddings and Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford. Yeah.
yeah,
So
did some research. Randy Pitchford's not a good person,
not a good
but
guy.
that's
No.
neither here.
Allegedly
So
not a good
here's
guy.
what I'm gonna explain what the issue with the casting is outside of casting Kevin Hart. I could forgive the other casting or whatever, seems pretty harmless, but the issue is the characters that they chose to create this. So let me put it this way. In the original Borderlands, the main characters were Roland, Brick, Lilith, and
Mm-hmm.
Mordecai.
Yes.
And with Tiny Tina, she was a sub part of that. She was like a minor side character. And
Yeah,
same
she
with
was like
Tanis.
some side quests, right? Like she was just
Yeah,
involved
yeah,
in
you just do it
some.
from like a side quest, and then
Yeah.
they have some background, then they have some little extra lore between Borderlands and Borderlands 2. She and even in Tiny Tina's Keep, she's the main character of that DLC, but you don't ever play as her, and she's still a side character.
Yeah.
So now the other issue is like with Borderlands 2, you have what is it, Zero? You have Zero, Salvador, Axton, and Maya. Now, Krieg is in there, but only as a DLC character. The only reason why Krieg is part of the Borderlands characters and everything like that, the only relation is because in the opening of Krieg, he runs into Maya. So
Yeah.
Maya is the
There's.
only reason why he becomes part of like the crew. So my thing is they none of those characters have anything to really do with each other outside of Roland and Lilith being together.
Yeah.
Those are the only people that actually have any connection, but all the other characters have no reason being there. Oh, and Claptrap, because Claptrap's there through all. So you have all these random people that have no reason being together. And the other
Oh, I
issue
forgot about
is
Mad
they,
Moxie too.
yes, they did too much to make the movie a comedy. And I don't feel like at its core, or at least looking at Borderlands 1 to the pre-sequel and Tales of the Borderlands, looking at it, the game was always, I feel like at first, a serious, dark, grim story, but there were comedic elements to it by just different quirky characters and everything. I wish they would have taken more of like a Mad Max style approach to it personally. I think that would have been done
Yeah, I could
better.
see that.
But the
Yeah.
thing with Borderlands 3 that I find that I don't really enjoy sometimes, it's too funny. Every character is a wise ass. It's got something. There's always some comedic elements here, 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 like every single step of the way, and I feel like it takes away from the overall seriousness of it.
Do
Like,
you think when did Borderlands 3 come out? That was what, 21, 20,
yeah, I
19?
think
It's
so.
fairly recent, right? Do you think this might not be as influential, but do you think because of Deadpool and like the success of that and like that character, that a lot of these different companies who make these types of games or shows, whatever, are going for that more raunchy, comedic, like full blown, just ridiculous. I mean, like, I'm not really
I don't
equating the
know
two. I
why.
just think that after Deadpool, the first one came out, you did see this kind of shift um, in some of these things. Because, like I said, like from what I remember playing Borderlands 1, 2 years ago, it's been a long time since I played those games, but like, I do there. I do remember there being funny moments, but I do also remember there being, it being more of a serious type of thing. And I think maybe Handsome Jack was more comedic at
Handsome Jack,
points.
his Handsome Jack was always a serious character, but
Yeah,
he was that
he
type of
does say
character
some
where
funny shit
he
sometimes
like
though.
yes he was just like he was such an egomaniac and such a sociopath that whenever he calls you and everything and just being himself, the stuff that he says about you or of him just toying with you, it
Yeah,
just ends up being funny. But overall, he's a serious person. Even in the pre-sequel, when you explore Jack and everything as he's coming up, he's mostly a serious guy and I feel like you take him seriously. But once again, everybody has their little quips, but there are some people who are just never funny and never had to be funny. Lilith, not really ever a funny person. Roland, never a funny person. Even Tannis, I'm sure they probably tried to make Tannis crack some jokes or whatever, and it probably wasn't landing because Tannis was never a funny person. I think even in the game, she's like autistic, or I think they kind of have her as like a kind of like on the spectrum, I guess if you want to be more uh PC about it. She's definitely
yeah,
on the spectrum, whatever, but it's one of those, it seems like the movie is making everything funny. And it's not. It was never supposed to be. It was supposed to be serious first, and then some comedic elements to break it up. But I think they went the complete other direction, and so that's also why it bombed. Also, that movie, because it's such an RPG of a game and there's so many stories, it probably would have been better off if they had just done like a TV series, maybe.
and I was gonna
Because
ask you that. I said, do you think if they announced a Borderlands show, and we'll talk about like Fallout and Last of Us here in a minute, and like how those are good adaptations. Do you think Borderlands would have been better as a TV show or like a mini series?
so this is how I would envision Borderlands personally. I think they would be better if they did like an anthology. And hear me out. I think like an anthology where some of the things tie into one another. So like they've done it in Black Mirror, and they've even done it with Love, Death, and Robots, where like the robots, like the robots, scenes with the three robots, they're all separated, but there's still like an overarching theme. Or I think even in Black Mirror, there are certain elements like the robotic dogs or other stuff. Even though they're in different episodes, there's still a universe around it.
Right,
There's still an
right.
overall universe. And so I would have liked to have seen like different stories of the different characters. Maybe one story you explore Mordecai. Maybe one story you explore Handsome Jack at a certain point of his career, and then you explore another point of his career, or you explore like the Atlas Wars, or just the I forgot what they call them, the company wars between all the gun
Yeah,
manufacturers and
yeah,
everything. That would be nice. Or you explore Ellie or something, or Scooter, or the Crimson Raiders, if you will. You can explore all these various themes, and then you can maybe have like a one story that you kind of see occasionally throughout, but you just have like a tale of just telling all these various stories of Pandora and just expanding on the overall lore. Like maybe I don't need to see the story of Borderlands 2 of all the vault dwellers going to kill Handsome Jack and everything. Why? I already played it. but see some stuff that you wouldn't see or that you wouldn't be able to play with.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
how did like some of the backstories of these various characters. What is the backstory of Lilith? The backstory of Roland? How did these people actually get to Pandora? Because sometimes you'll see, and when you play the different games, you'll pick up these logs, and it shows you get like little hints into their before life. Okay, let's explore that more a little bit. But it
mm-hmm.
doesn't have to always have to follow this overarching story. It can just be different episodes. It can just make it an anthology. I think that would have been a much more clever way to go about it, especially with a game with an RPG game that's that big.
And I feel the same way about Star Wars. Star Wars, the expanded lore is so vast and so, you know, I mean, it's literally a galaxy. I mean, there's tons of things in it, but we keep making stuff. I say we, Disney, Lucasfilm, even before Disney had it, making stuff that's just all in the Skywalker saga, like that time period, and it's like we get it. Okay, the Empire, the Jedi, like move on. Like that's why there was things about. That's why I mean, like games like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I enjoy those games. Yes, they take place right after the fall of the Jedi. Between episodes 3 and 4, but you get introduced to a new side of the galaxy, introduced to a new character. That's something I appreciate. With the newest Star Wars game, Outlaws, like yes, it takes place between episode 4 and episode 5. I think is when that takes place because they mentioned the Death Star exploding. Um, like yeah, but that's more RPG game. You're playing a different character on new planets, so like that I get. Well, with stuff like Borderlands, like yeah, I agree. There are so many characters, there's so many factions that they could explore right in this, and I think doing a um a right proper 6 to 8 episode series, I think would have benefited the story more, and I
Because
think
like
they could have got no name actors, because you're not going to get Kevin Hart and Kate Blanchett and Jamie Lee Curtis and all of these people in a TV show
because like the way I
nowadays.
look at it too is like when you since you have Roland and Lilith together, but you don't have Brick and you don't have Mordecai. My thing
Yeah,
is like their adventure that they're going on it doesn't really seem canon. It doesn't really seem canon at all. It's just this out there story that doesn't make any sense. That's complicated for no
yeah,
reason.
and it's
Which
kind
is
of
why
like
like
the Halo show. You probably haven't seen.
yes, I heard the biggest thing, which makes sense. The thing that actually pissed everybody off, but I think the people that are making it thought like this is what people want to see is when Master Chief revealed himself. That
Right.
ruined it because
We
Master
we
Chief could
we
be
can
who
talk about
you
it
and
in a little bit because I've seen season 1. I have not watched season 2. I do still want to watch it. But it came out I think last year, or end of last year,
Mhm.
early this year. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean, to me, like I'm a huge Halo guy. I played all the Halo games. Was invested in Forge for a long time. Halo Machinima, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of how this channel started, was doing Halo videos Halo Reach videos back in the day. And with Halo, to me, I think Halo would work better as a TV show. I do still believe that. I just think
Mhm.
the creators of this show specifically didn't, like, kind of like the Borderlands movie, they didn't really have what the essence of Halo is. Now from season 1, I think there are cool like action scenes in it, like the way that the Spartans fight, the way that the Covenant kind of looks so, but it's hard to do the Covenant justice in live action just because of their design. But like I do think there's some cool action scenes in that, and the way that they twisted the mythology of Halo, Chief being this inheritor of Forerunner blood or whatever it was, but him being more of like a prophet in this version of the
Yeah, because
show.
wasn't he just like a good soldier that got put into the super soldier program or the Spartan program?
No, so how the Halo lores go is that Halsey uh, kidnapped kids, and that was the big thing about that in the Halo lore,
Hmm.
not just the show, but like also like in the games and books and stuff. She kidnaps kids and she trains them from like to be Spartans, and a lot of them don't
Okay.
survive. And so, but because of that, you know, Master Chief John, he just became a great soldier, and a legend in his own right. And so in this show, they kind of cover that. They do kind of cover a little bit of that, him being taken from his home, and him like having these memories, and then eventually getting like Cortana, like how it works, and then like all this kind of stuff like that. But the one thing that they really just do, like you mentioned, he takes off his helmet like every scene. To me, that doesn't bother me that much because it's kind of like the Iron Man thing, right? Like or Spider-Man, like every scene that Spider-Man's in, he takes off his mask, right? Because
Yes, but here's the thing. But you
he's the
already know
actor,
who he
right?
looks like.
Right, you already know what
But
he
you
looks
also
like.
you already know who he looks like, so it doesn't matter. You know who Tony Stark is. But
Yes,
as
yeah.
far as I'm concerned, in all the Halo games, you never see Master Chief's face.
No,
That was
no,
kind of
you
part of
don't.
like the
There is a
yeah, that's part of like
legendary
the
ending scene in I think Halo 4 where you see his eyes because like he's get his armor taken off, but that's about it. I think.
and I
But
think that's
yeah,
what makes that's part of that mystery and everything, where like he could be whatever you think he looks like. He can be whatever you want him to be. And he's got a generic name that anybody that could have that name. So it's one of those, it could be you in a sense.
right. And
And I
and
think
I
that's
think
part of that
that
immersion.
and I think the point is that that works better as a video game trope, right? Like you are Master Chief. That's why you never see his face because in theory, like you said, you are seeing the world and you're playing the world through his eyes, your eyes, right? So when you take something like a maskless or a faceless figure like Master Chief, or I'm trying to think of another character, but I think mostly Master Chief, and you put him into live action, how is that going to work? And it's
What about
you
the
get it, you
Mandalorian?
cast an actor. Mandalorian, great example, but like the thing with the Mandalorian is that there wasn't precedence. Like there wasn't a Mandalorian game first where you play as this maskless person or this faceless person,
But it
right?
doesn't matter. I don't
Well,
think
the
that's
whole thing with
irrelevant.
the Mandalorian is because the part of their creed is that you don't take your helmet off. But there's some other Mandalorians like
Exactly.
Bo-Katan and some other factions where they do because they're like that. They're like that's stupid. Of course you can take your helmet off.
But that's still an established lore within the overall series. And so it seems
Yes,
like they've been
but
following that because, as far as I'm concerned, Mandalorian Pedro Pascal, you don't see his face. He doesn't take his helmet off,
he
right?
does in a couple episodes. But he only
Okay.
does it. Well, he only does it because the story needs it to happen in a way that that's not forced. Like there's a great scene. I don't know. Have you seen all of Mandalorian?
No.
Okay, so do you know Bill Burr's in it?
Yes, I did see that. I watched
Okay,
that episode just because of that.
so the episode where he's talking to the other officer and he's talking about Operation Cinder and he's like very serious. He goes, "Yeah, a lot of people died that day," in that scene, but Pedro Pascal, Din Djarin, is there with his helmet off because the only way he could get in there was without his helmet. And to him, I mean, like, so that story wise, that makes sense, right? But something like Master Chief, it 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 doesn't. I think if they did a Halo show, but it wasn't about Master Chief, I think it would have worked. And in like just like look at Reach, right? Like Halo Reach, you are
Hmm.
a Spartan. You're just a new Spartan. That's your character. You can
Yeah.
customize them. Perfect. If they did something like Reach, if they did like an independent story that happens in the Halo universe, Master Chief's not involved, then I could see you having Spartans that could take their helmets off and they could talk and be
Yeah, and it wouldn't be an
human in a
issue.
way.
But I
And
think
I
the whole
think it
point of
would
Master
work.
Chief, because I think they've always made an effort for Master
Mm-hmm.
Chief to never see his face, and I think that
Right.
was an intentional effort. I don't see any problem with bringing that into the TV show. Does it matter? I mean, here's the thing: if you really want to know, just look at the actor who plays him. Okay, that's what Master Chief looked like. Whatever the actor who's physically playing the body, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You don't need. I don't feel like
Yeah.
you need to see the face. It's not important for you to see what he looks like. I mean, maybe a stretch, but I mean, look at some horror movies with like some Michael Myers movies, like some of the
Mm-hmm.
old ones. You don't see his face.
Jason.
There's a lot, yeah, Jason.
I, I mean,
There's a lot of iterations, but most of them you don't see the face.
there,
It's
there.
not important.
Here's another great character, Darth Vader. We know Hayden Christensen plays the younger version of Anakin, but in the original trilogy, when those were coming out, you never saw Vader's face. The guy portraying Vader was not James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones was just the voice.
Yeah,
So it's like, and then obviously you don't see his face reveal until Return of the Jedi when he's dying. But that's another character that you could see, like, okay, like if they did a Vader, that like, see, I think people equate it to like if they did a Vader series, but like every episode he takes off his helmet, and you're like, no, you need that to breathe, dummy. Like it's stuff like that. I
And also,
think,
I think it takes away from that character
yeah. I mean,
because part of
obviously,
it is
us
that
the
identity
audience,
or lack
like,
thereof.
yeah, like us the audience know it's Anakin. We know what Anakin looks like. We know he got burnt to a crisp in Episode 3. So we don't have to see his face going forward. If they do other stuff with Darth Vader in between, like the years he was active, and it's like moving on to like these other video game adaptations, like Uncharted, where you cast Tom Holland.
Yeah,
You're a
so
big Uncharted fan. You're actually currently replaying through
yes,
the
I'm
games,
playing four. So
and
here's my issue with the Uncharted series. So
well,
I
hold
watched
on,
it.
hold on. Before you get into my point really quick, is would you prefer? Because we'll talk about like Uncharted, Last of Us, Fallout kind of did it, but casting no names for these or people who aren't as popular as these video game characters, or casting these big people like Tom Holland as Nathan Drake in Uncharted. Okay, sorry. Now continue.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with either, honestly, because I mean, essentially Tom Hall and some of these people, they were no names when they
Mm-hmm.
came up. So you can't get popular without being a no name first. So I
Well,
don't really have a problem with that.
but
But I think you do need at some point, you do need at least an A-lister to somewhat sell it. I think a
right,
little bit.
right.
But I think the choice was like with Last of Us, I'm not Last of Us, Uncharted. I think the casting choice was atrocious. I don't blame Tom Holland and I don't blame Mark Wahlberg. They probably got a good offer for us, so they're gonna take it. Now, here's my issue. Tom Holland is about what, in his late 20s,
Yeah, he's
probably
our
on the
age. He's
cusp of 30.
28. He's our
Okay.
age. Yeah.
So Drake from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 4, he's early 30s to early 40s. So he's a fully grown middle-aged man. He's a pretty built guy, and he's described as like 6'2", I think like 200 pounds or something. Tom Holland, even
He
though
still looks like a kid.
he looks like 15 years old, which is why
Yeah.
he's able to play high school
Yeah.
Spider-Man so well because you look at him, I know he's a grown-ass man, but you can believe that,
J-
yeah, he could easily play a 15-year-old kid.
just to put it in
But he,
contrast, me and you are the same age as Tom Holland, and he looks like 10 years younger than us.
yeah, he still was, he could be in high school. I'd probably get the police call on me if I was walking around high school, like it's just kind of how it is. That's fair. So I think he was a horrible casting choice. I think, like honestly, like you want to two actors I would have liked. Think I could have done a much better job. First one is Bradley Cooper. He's got good range.
Yeah, I like Bradley
I
Cooper.
think he fits the bill pretty well. Or even Dylan McDermott. I think he could probably have done that a bit more justice.
What if they got Nolan North to do it? I
I
mean,
mean that.
I don't. Is Nolan North like a fit guy? I mean, does it matter? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if it
'cause
matters. I
he's the
think
voice of Drake in the
yes.
games, right? Nolan North.
He's
Yeah.
the voice. No, my thing is he can be a good voice actor, but I mean, is he a good on-screen actor?
Yeah.
I don't know
I think
because
I
they're
think he
completely
has a
different
cameo
roles.
in that movie too. Well, yeah, because
Yeah,
like
but a
we can
cameo is
talk
different
about
than
this in a
full-on
different
acting.
episode, but voice acting and acting I do consider different skills.
They are.
Obviously, there's a lot of actors who can voice act, and there's a lot of voice actors who can act on screen. But if you're like Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, Nolan North, all of these big, you know, names that are in video games specifically voice acting, can that translate over to on
To
screen?
like actual acting, exactly.
I also want
So
to mention
there's
this really quickly before we get off topic. Do you remember Mark Wahlberg? Oh my gosh, Mark Wahlberg also, or was that Matt Damon? I think it was Mark. He was Max Payne, the Max Payne movie. Do you remember that?
yeah, we don't talk about that. That movie was weird. I don't think that really had anything to do with the
I
actual Max
forgot.
Payne
I
story outside
forgot
of
he
his
was
family
Max
dying.
Payne.
Yeah, that was weird. And that's kind of what I'm
Another
gonna get
bad
into
video
with
game
Mark
adaptation.
with so here's the thing too. So I'm mad that they also casted Mark Wahlberg as Sully. So
Yeah,
Sully is also about 6 foot and some change. He's
he's
clearly
way
like in
older
his yeah,
too.
he's clearly like in his
He's
like
like in
late 50s, early
early
60s. He's
sixties.
got
Yeah.
gray hair and relatively slim, average size for a fit, average to fit size. Mark Wahlberg is 5'7", 5'8", stocky as hell, and he looks like Mark Wahlberg. Like Mark Wahlberg has a very
Yeah.
distinctive face. Now, I think there was a point in time where Mark Wahlberg was a really, really good actor, and he showed that he has a range. Now, here's the thing: I don't really blame Mark Wahlberg for this. If anything, I blame directors that do this. People, I feel like Mark Wahlberg or Will Smith when he was playing Deadshot or whatever and
Yeah.
Suicide
And
Squad.
Suicide Squad. Yeah.
I think what happens, there's this, I feel like there's like this effect thing where these actors, they get really popular. And because they have this star power, and I feel like the producers say, oh, this guy's in the movie, people are going to come see them for that actor. So I think they just tell them, you do what you do best. Because it gets to the point now where, like Mark Wahlberg, when he's playing these characters, he just plays a version of himself as a character. I think
And
if he's playing like original characters like for part of just for the movie and it's not related to
yeah,
anything,
it's
I
yeah,
think he does a
sure.
good job.
But if he's
But when you
adapting a character from a previous
that's
IP,
already fleshed out,
so do you
I don't think
think
it does it justice.
so what's the difference between, because we talked about this in the Marvel episode last week, and that was I one of my pitches for if they wanted to do Kang again was to bring in Denzel Washington as an older, more seasoned Kang the Conqueror. And you mentioned that well nowadays he doesn't do voices, he just does himself, because we were talking about the Gladiator 2 that
Yeah.
he trailer that he's in, the movie that he's in. So, but what is the difference? What do you think? Like, why does that work with Ryan Reynolds Deadpool and
So
like casting? Because like Ryan Reynolds is like Deadpool in real life, you know, and essentially he is playing himself, which is why he's so good in
yeah,
that role.
and his thing, I think that's why it works. It was as you look at it as a match made in heaven. Because even outside of Deadpool, all the characters that Ryan Reynolds usually plays as, if he's in a comedic role,
Mm-hmm.
he's always just been that kind of
Yeah,
wisecracking kind of just comedic guy, and just kind of vulgar at times, and just even in the interviews that he does, it seems like he's just almost always in that
he's
character.
always
So
in the
with him
Deadpool
playing
character. Yeah,
Deadpool, it works very well, and they happen like Ryan Reynolds the man probably has that similar personality to Deadpool the character as far as that comedic timing and everything. Whereas Mark Wahlberg in his what I call Wahlbergisms and everything is completely different from how the comedic style or the comedic moments that Sully has and what he brings to the table. Like I think
mm-hmm.
I would have liked someone like maybe J.K. Simmons, or I don't know the actor's name, but in
But I think
Yellowstone, the Yellowstone
oh,
show,
Kevin
the
Costner.
guy who plays the young no, not Kevin Costner, the guy who plays the younger version of John Dutton. Because
Hold
even
on,
the
let me
younger
look.
version, I because he's got the mustache, the hair, he's got that kind of gruffish voice. I mean, you could dye his hair a little bit, maybe add a wrinkle or two if you need to, and I think that would have been a
Josh
great
Lucas
choice. The
is
dude
his
can,
name.
yeah, and I think that could have been done well. Here's the thing, or you could have got
Yeah,
a
I could see
no-name
him as
actor,
Sully.
but
Yeah, with
you,
his mustache. Yeah, I
but
could see him as that.
here's the thing, anybody but Mark Wahlberg. And now I'm not going to knock Mark Wahlberg for this, but like I said, this goes back to I blame the directors because
Right.
I don't think they push these actors. I think they just have them on screen, do what you do best, and then just accept that. And instead, no, I want you to play the character. You don't need to take this new take on a character. This character's been fleshed out for 4 freaking games. So
Yeah.
there's already an established behavior and things of this character. Don't take it and turn it to something. Not now you got Sully acting like a short bodybuilding dude from Boston or
He's
something,
like,
and
hey,
it's just
hey,
weird.
what are you looking at me for? Hey, you know, I'm Mark Wahlberg. I'm from Boston. You
Because
know, like it does feel off. I
whenever
mean,
if
but look at it
when I
like
go to watch the
Hollywood,
movie,
right?
I want to see hmm,
No, so like what we were talking about earlier, really quickly, about the Minecraft movie. They have Jason Momoa and Jack Black in there, right? Borderlands, they got Kevin Hart, Kate Blanchett. You know, they have all of these A-list names, like we talked about. You know, that they want to bring in, you know, these people that will pull the crowds, but for the most part, people don't want that. And like you look at stuff
'cause, I
like,
mean, think about it this way: you casted Kevin Hart. Now, outside of the story being bad, I think they mostly banked on, oh, Kevin Hart's in it. That's going to get people to see it. Okay, you
right,
got some people to see it, and it bombed. It's probably going to be one of the worst movies of this year. How'd
oh,
that work out for you?
easily, yeah, easily, and it's just sad because there's so many like I think one of the movies, the adaptations that I feel deserves better is Assassin's Creed. And me and you are fans of the franchise. I
Oh
think
yeah,
I think me so more
I
me
remember
more. I
watching the movie
mean,
long ago.
I have an Assassin's Creed tattoo. It's from Odyssey, so it's like, you,
Yeah, I
you
think you're a
know,
bigger stan than I am.
I've played every game. It's a franchise that I do love. I even love the newer games. I think the RPG games are the best, and I think there are way better characters than Ezio. I'm sorry, all these people who just suck the cock of Ezio in every chance they get. It's just great. I'm not going to deny he's a great character. It's just I think Arno is way better. I think Edward Kenway is way better. I think Bayek from Origins, Cassandra, Ava. I do think they are better characters. They're better written characters. But like, let's talk about the movie. So the movie came out. Was that 2016? Let me pull it up. Hold on.
Dude,
I think it
I
was.
just know that Michael Fassbender was in it. I don't even remember the movie,
Yes.
honestly.
So Michael Fassbender plays. I think his name is Callum Lynch. A weird name. Let me pull
I
it up real
wouldn't know.
quick. But like the thing with Assassin's Creed is, I mean, me and you both know, the lore of Assassin's Creed is ridiculous, and it just goes to show that like when you're adapting video games, really even like comics, you're adapting all these different uh, things like from like Marvel, Star Wars, DC, video games, etc. It is very hard because like when you as a filmmaker, right? We're both filmmakers. When we are adapting or we're writing something, we have to make sure that a general audience understands it, right? And something like Assassin's Creed is very complicated to just explain the science of the animus, explain the science of how the DNA, genetic memories work, and like who are the assassins, who are the Templars, and their whole
Well, also, here's the
thousands of
thing, though.
years
Do you
feud.
all some of these things, do you have to explain all those in detail, or could you just more or less say, "Yep, here's the animus. This is what it does. We've got this. This is what we're trying to do." Does do the deep
No,
details? Does that actually really matter to a general audience? So I don't feel like some of these things have to be explained in detail as they do in the games. Just
but
okay, look, you're watching this movie. All right, this is just the universe that it lies in. Okay, just accept it.
and I think that was the downfall of this movie. I think because they wanted to focus on explaining the world and explaining the science of this stuff and how it works, I think is what dragged that movie down. And in Assassin's Creed, I think is another because I've seen fan films of Assassin's Creed that I think are generally
Hmm.
pretty good. I mean, I wrote my own fan film, really it's a fan series for Assassin's Creed, but that kind of got morphed into my Embers universe, my Spark universe, which you all know all about. And I think Assassin's Creed deserves another shot at the big screen or at least a TV show. I think Assassin's Creed is perfect for a series, and again, this is one of those things where this doesn't deserve to be a movie because this movie's less than 2 hours. And like in for the most part of it, you don't even spend a lot of time in the past, which is the coolest part of playing the Assassin's Creed game is running around
Yeah.
Constantinople, running around ancient London and ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and you industrial era Victoria era London, and the French Revolution, the American Revolution. I mean, running around in these historical
And meeting these
events
historical figures.
that's what's appealing about Assassin's Creed, and I think if they, I don't know who owns Assassin, it's Ubisoft, but I don't know if they're who owned the film rights. I don't remember who did this movie. Oh, 20th Century Fox. So technically, Disney owns the rights to Assassin's Creed, but I think if they did an Assassin's Creed series akin to maybe not a direct adaptation, kind of like how Last of Us is, but something like Fallout, where like the Fallout show is kind of its own original story
Yeah,
within
and
the Fallout
I gotta say
universe.
this. So because of, video game adapted movies are usually not that good. I was very wary about Fallout because
Mm-hmm.
almost in the same light as like Borderlands, except they already have their own established characters. You kind of can shoot. There's an overarching story, but you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about how they were going to do that because I also had the idea of like an anthology and just exploring different stories. I think that also still would have been a good take, but I'm actually really impressed on how they went about exploring these three different characters, and especially during and the thing is too, it has nothing to do with any of the games because it doesn't need to. It's still an
Right.
exploration on the
It
lore. It takes place at a
it's the
different
world,
time.
right?
It's a different time at in a different state, and it's its own story. But they still have the elements. You still have the Enclave, the Brotherhood, the ghouls, the
Yeah.
Raiders, and
Yeah.
fiends, and everything like
All
that.
of these factions still exist, but it's a completely
Exactly.
different. So the people
So
who are
I'm really
watching it
impressed.
and not familiar with the Fallout games and universe,
You don't
they
need
can
to
come into this
because
and
it has
everything
nothing
gets
to do.
explained to them throughout, right? And then the people like you and me who've played Fallout and know the world go into it and be like, nice. Oh, that's cool. They brought that back. Oh, wow. There's the power armor. That's kind of sick. Like, oh, here's the vault.
Exactly, because like there aren't really nods to the games rather than it's just a nod to it's just a lore. That's all it is. It's
Right,
just showing
right,
the lore. It's not like, oh, that's in the game, that's in the game. Well, obviously it's all based off of the game or whatever.
right.
But it's not like, oh, that's from Fallout 3 or that's from New Vegas or whatever, because it's just part of the world. It was always meant to be there regardless. So they did very well with that. I'm actually very impressed. That's one
It,
that they did right, and I think that's a show that people that are going to adapt video games into film, whether it's a movie or a TV
do,
show, need to take a look at a hint from
was
how they did it.
Do you know if people who were involved with the games were they involved with that show? They had to have been, right? I don't know that for sure.
Fallout,
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd have to go look at the credits, but
I would have
I
to
would
look.
imagine.
Well, I mean that's a great segue into The Last of Us. I think we can close out on The Last of Us because season 2 is going to come out next year. Season 1 I thought was great. I've played the first game. I haven't played the second game, but I know what
I
happens in
played
the second
both.
game. So to avoid, we're not going to really talk about the second game because
No.
there's a lot of spoilers in that. That I think a lot of the general audience who doesn't play the games that I know they're going to follow. Because Neil Druckmann, he's involved with that show. He
Neil
wrote the show,
Druckmann wrote and directed the game, and he also wrote and directed the show.
right?
What makes it
So
really good is because I'll talk about why I think what makes it very fantastic. One, they stuck with the source material.
see, this is
They
what I was going
didn't.
to ask you. So if they did a Last of Us show, but it didn't involve Joel and Ellie, it was its own thing, kind of like Fallout. Do you think it would have had the same impact? Because you could see Last of Us, so like Fallout and Last of Us, both examples of great
Mhm.
adaptations. One follows the source material almost to a T, and then you have one that's its own independent story within the universe. Do you think either one of those, if they switch those, do you think Fallout would have worked if it like followed Fallout 4 or whatever? And do you think Last of Us would have worked if it was its own independent thing?
So no, okay. I don't think it would work for either. So I don't think Fallout the show would work if it followed the Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 or the New Vegas storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because when you play those games, you decide your own fate.
Right.
There's like, and the thing is, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just you as the player. When you end the game, it's not like anything you do. Like you in Fallout 4, there's what, three or four different endings with the
Yeah.
factions,
Something
and
like
even,
that.
and
Yeah.
so and there's the karmic scale and everything like that, where if you do something to this faction, it's going to affect how this faction feels about you, and vice versa. So there's too many variable elements in that karmic system, and how the whole thing is, it's up to you as the person. So to follow that to follow that path in a show, whatever, if you make it where, oh, it ends with you side with the Brotherhood, well, if I really hate the Brotherhood, or if I really like this faction, then I think it doesn't work out as well. So I like
Yeah.
how they keep it open and it just follows its own line with these very fresh characters that nobody's ever been invested in, or is not following this particular story
Mm-hmm.
that we all know about. It's its own unique story with these different characters. I think that's a better take. Last of Us, I also don't feel like it would work if they did it like Fallout with a new story, just because the way that The Last of Us and Last of Us 2 is built around, the whole focus is essentially
Is Ellie,
around Joel, Ellie
Joel and
and
Ellie.
Joel.
Yeah.
It's always the universe is, and that universe is all around them.
Now,
Yes, they have.
how would you feel? Because we're going to talk about like the big differences in the game and the show adaptation that a lot of people had issues with. But if they, so when they do season 2 comes out and it's just as good as the game. And I know there's a lot of controversy with the game, part 2, but those are just people who hate women, I guess. But
And I don't think they understand the real
what
story.
if they did a spin-off show on like the Fireflies, for example. You know, like would you be okay with that? Like even if like what if Neil Druckmann wasn't involved maybe, and they just did their own separate side thing, you know, like they did involve Joe and Ellie just in the universe, kind of like how Walking Dead has like
Hmm.
17 spin-offs. Would you want something like that for Last of Us?
I think it would be nice if they just did like a little mini series, like a one-off thing.
Like a limited
It,
series, just like a one
yeah,
season,
it's just
just
it's one little thing, and that's it. So not like even like House of Dragons, where they're making another. They're probably gonna do 3 or 4 seasons of that, and just keep milking it. You don't need
well,
to
they
milk it.
can't
Hell,
because it only takes place like 200 years before Game of Thrones
no,
or
but
something.
here's the thing. But there's so much more that they can do. There's
Oh,
so
there's
much
so
that they
much
can do with
lore.
the
Yeah,
game,
there's so
just
much
as
lore
far
in
as
that game,
the
in
lore
that
itself.
show,
So they could
the
go so
books.
many different routes. But my
Yeah.
thing is, still though, I mean, he's like, even though it's only 200 years before, they could still milk it every little detail if
Oh,
they
yeah,
wanted to.
easily.
But digressing. So I mean, if they did like a Fireflies thing, I think they could. I don't know how it would really work because I don't think they're
I don't.
that interesting to begin
Right,
with,
because for the people who
that
don't
interesting
know,
to make like what a 5 episode or a 10 episode miniseries, probably all what an hour long, even if you're making 30 minutes
yeah.
long per episode. I don't think there's really enough to really make it that interesting,
Okay.
personally.
No, I agree with you because like the Fireflies, they're kind of for the people who don't know, they're kind of a resistance group against like the whatever's left of the government, you know, after
The Fedra.
the Fedra. Yeah, I mean, like I agree. I don't think there's enough there to really warrant a show. Like obviously, this is just speculation. There's absolutely no evidence that they're going to be doing a fire. This is just for the sake of the conversation. But back to the Last of Us, like the show. Um, you think if they did a movie, it wouldn't be as impactful, probably, right?
No,
Like a 2 hour
no,
movie, I
because
don't think it would be.
because
There's
here's the thing,
so
because
much
I'll be.
story.
And that's the thing, because especially since like the game is pretty linear, even though it
Mm-hmm.
is linear, there's still so much. Like even for a video game, it pushed the boundaries, not just in gameplay graphics, but storytelling
And
and how to
yeah,
tell an amazing, beautiful
I
story.
would argue
So,
that so the original Last of Us game, it came out what 2013 something like that. It was a long time ago,
yeah,
right? And I think when you Sony specifically, once when Last of Us came out, they kind of shifted all their games towards that more cinematic realm. I mean, you look at the new God of War series is that way.
mhm.
Ghost of Tsushima is that way. I'm trying to think. I mean, Last of Us 2. I'm sure I'm blanking. I think the later Uncharted 4, and like, I think started moved towards more of that style, and I think because of Last of Us, and not just Sony, but like there was a lot of other video game studios. I mean, the new Tomb Raider games moved to a more cinematic linear
Absolutely.
style in that style of game. Last of Us really changed the game when it came to cinematic experiences with video games, and I think the show did the same thing for video game adaptations, and I think going forward, it will. I think Last of Us 2 is going to be super controversial, especially for people who've never played the game and don't know what the story of Last of Us 2
Oh, yeah,
is.
exactly.
I think it's going to be very, I'm just going to say heartbreaking, for a lot of people. But like, let's talk about
Now,
the
I will tell you what I would like to see that I think would be interesting because you talked about like if they did like a spin-off of
okay,
the
mm-hmm.
Fireflies. I'll tell you what I think would be more interesting. If they covered the 20-year gap, just like they did in the
Yeah,
game, you have the ending where his daughter dies, and then it jumps 20 years to
yeah,
present time.
to the
I would like
present,
to
yeah.
see like how did Joel change from becoming this kind of man to this hardened dude? What happened with him and Tommy? How Tommy got separated and became
Yeah.
a
I
Firefly.
mean, they
I
allude to
think
that
that
stuff.
would
There's
be
some flashbacks in the show that weren't in the original game. And like that's the story of, or that's the beauty of adapting, you know, something from a video game medium to a film medium. You know, you have the thing where one of the big controversies with the show was that they didn't wear masks when they were around spores, right? Which is a big mechanic in the game. But in the game, it makes sense because of just the gameplay aspect of it, right? But in the
but
show,
it's hard to
it's hard to
show
adapt that
that.
in the show. And the same thing with Nick Offerman's character, which his name is blanking on me right now. in that whole episode 3 of him and the love story between him and his partner over the course of
So
20 years.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. One, I think a big issue that a lot of people had was that he was gay. Here's the thing, though. In the
He's
game,
gay in the
he was
games.
gay. He was always gay in the
Yeah.
game because that scene after when they leave his house and there's that scene where they're driving the Chevy and she's talking
Mm-hmm.
about the magazine, the pages stuck together, and she throws it out. That's literally shot for shot what
Shot
happens
for
in the
shot
game.
remake. Yeah.
She had the game in the gay porno mag. So the only difference in the game, and I think it was nice that they took that different approaches instead of Nick Offerman and Frank, Bill and Frank
Frank.
having that falling out,
Yeah.
and Frank dying by himself, and Bill being just this disgruntled
Yeah.
old bitter man.
Because
They turned it into a love story, and
if I
it was
remember
kind of a
correctly,
break.
in the game, Frank was already dead, right? When you meet Bill.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Frank was
Yeah.
already dead at this point. So I thought it was nice that they did a different story, a different take. It was a little break from the main storyline, but you
Yeah.
see this other little story. It's self-contained in its own episode. That's it. You
Beautiful
move on.
episode too. Like regardless if you don't like seeing gay people on screen, which first of all, it's not that serious. Second of all, I think just as a love story, like not even as a love story, just this relationship between two characters, just in general. I mean, it is heartbreaking. I mean, like you survive the apocalypse, you go through all this, and then you get cancer.
Well,
You know, and it's
if you look
like
at it, considering the apocalypse scenario, I mean, I would say they
they
more or
did
less
great.
survived.
They
They
survived.
survived. They made it out. They went out on their own terms. They lived a long life. They didn't get infected. So,
Yeah,
I
and
would
I think
consider that a win.
the big change also was that Bill dies in the show when he helps you in the game when you meet him, and like there's a whole like
Yeah,
chapter level whatever they're called. You know, when
yeah, because
you're with
that's when
Bill.
you that's when you find that Frank is dead because you see that you're going to get the battery, and that's when you notice that
Hmm.
Frank hung himself because he got infected and died, and then he gives you the stuff and tells you to f off, and that's the last you see.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think besides that, I think those are the two biggest changes: the whole spore thing and um, the whole Frank and Bill kind of arc. But other than that, I think the show adapted the game as best as it could. I mean, obviously, you know, like we mentioned that when you're adapting something to film, that's like when you look at books, right? When you see books and like, oh well, the book is better, or like the film has left out these parts of the book, or blah blah blah. But it's like, well, it's a different medium, you know. Like you
Yeah,
have to,
something's got to be changed. Something you
sometimes
can't
you have to
portray exactly the
sacrifice
same.
things, right? You can't do it an exact adaptation because, to me, I think that's boring. If I go and watch like the Harry Potter film and it's a direct, you know, adaptation of the book, it's like, well, then I can just read the book. You know, why even why does the movie exist? You know, obviously that's a weird comparison, but like I do think compared to the game Last of Us and the film or the show Last of Us, I think is a very good example of these changes were necessary and they work for the context of the show, but the game still exists, and if you don't like those changes, you can still go experience the game. You know how
Do the TV show for
right,
people that don't play games or whatever, they did it just right. So it's
right,
like, okay, I don't need to play the game to experience the story. Like whoever saw it, people that didn't play the game and watched the show, and people that played the game and maybe they didn't see the show, they could get
mm-hmm.
together and talk about it. It's like, hey, have you seen Last of Us? No, but I played it. Oh, you played it? I've never seen it, and y'all can talk about the exact
Right.
same stuff.
Yeah,
And there's
give or
not gonna be
take a
much
few, give or
difference.
take a few changes, but like what I appreciate about the
But it
show
doesn't. But
is that in the first few episodes they give you the aftermath, like right before the outbreak in Jakarta in Malaysia, like where that
mhm.
lady is looking at the bot, like the patient zero, and then like you see like the beginning of Frank's episode about all these evacuations in the days after, you know, and all these people
Yeah.
being killed out of fear of infection. I mean, like it is scary stuff, and I think that opening, I think in the pilot episode, the first episode where it opened up with that um like talk show, and the guy was on like,
Yeah, the
yeah,
news.
and it's like, yeah, I think if there was a virus, it could just kill everyone, you know, if it really wanted to, and like blah blah blah, and like this is how it would do it, and like it's terrifying because in real life we had just lived through the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and in like those fears were already elevated with the world population of like, hey, look, this virus shut down the entire world, a lot of people died from it, could this happen again? How can we prevent it from happening again? And like yeah, obviously Last of Us is a fantasy, but it's like the
Well,
cordyceps,
here's the
they
thing.
exist.
Yeah,
That
it does
zombie
exist.
virus exists.
it exists, and like there've been thoughts that like yes, it can't survive in the human body right now, but there's I guess theories that if global temperatures were to rise and as it would
Continue to
evolve,
rise,
yeah,
yes.
continue to rise and evolve, could it eventually like is it a possibility just in the scope of reality? Is that a possibility that it could happen given these conditions? And
Like,
some people say yes. Now, how long would that take? Who knows? But I don't
yeah,
think it's
I mean,
outside the realm of possibilities. Would it turn us into mindless zombies?
right.
Probably
I was about
not.
to say I'm not a mycologist,
Yeah.
but fungus, like obviously the cordyceps, like that particular strand of fungus that affects like ants and spiders. It's gnarly. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen pictures of it,
Oh yeah. Oh, I just saw
but
what they did spider.
it's I don't think. I mean, like the fungus does control the body, but the host dies. So I don't think if it ever got to the point where it did infect people and it affected people in a way and like mutated them in a way where like they will grow fungus. Like I think that's fantasy.
I think they're
I
gonna make
don't
them
think.
kill us. Yeah, them
Yeah,
getting the fungus and like
like
killing us, no. But
I
as
don't
far as
think
probably infections and everything like that, and like that whole pandemic of like a flu, that flu epidemic and or COVID and stuff like that, I think that would be real. But as far as them trying to kill us to infect, yeah, no, I'm
yeah,
not
I think
thinking
if
that.
there's any sort of brain disease that affects people, it's TikTok. but
Yeah.
um but like the brain rot, I think it's just people will just die and that'll be it. I don't think there's no science to back up that things can be reanimated. At least as far as I know. But speaking of like zombies, we didn't even talk about the biggest video game adaptation. That's Resident Evil. Um,
No. Oh my God, dude.
or
It's
we didn't
here's the thing.
even
I've been
talk
playing
about
the
Silent Hill either.
I, I get think I don't know what's wrong. Like it's not hard. I don't feel like it's that hard, 'cause especially like something like Resident Evil. Trust me, I literally just watched like this 3 hour video of this guy explaining the entirety of the lore of Resident Evil.
The
It's
games,
already, yes, all the games, how they work chronologically and how they tie in. And it
yeah.
was pretty entertaining. So my thing is like it's not hard. It's not hard to make a good, faithful adaptation. And I don't know why, like I had hopes for the Netflix show, but they bombed that too. And so it's
Yeah.
one of those like, is there going to be a chance for a resurrection for somebody to do it justice, or is Capcom just like, nah, it's been bad too many times. Nobody gets to adapt it anymore. Because I hope that's not the case. I think there's somebody out there who's a big fan that
Oh
has
yeah.
the vision that could make a
Absolutely.
good Resident Evil movie or a TV show.
And
It
and to
could work
close,
either way.
yeah, and I think to close out this episode is, do you think that with the success of Last of Us, Fallout, even Sonic, we didn't even talk about Sonic. I like those
Yes.
movies.
And even Super
Like
Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Bros, but that's more for kids. That's fine. But it's
Well, it doesn't
like
matter. It's still a video game. They
but
did it
these
right. They learned the
shows,
lesson from like live
yeah,
action.
these shows and movies where like studios are now starting to trust, fans of these shows. Not like so like with X-Men 97, the people who worked on that show grew up with the original show, right? Things like
Yeah.
Neil Druckmann working on getting to do his game again, but in a different medium, and that worked out. And again, I have to look up Fallout. I don't remember who did that, but
Also,
it's
also
like,
here's a point. Here's a point I think I want to nail home too. Because I feel like they try to make these video games when they make these video game adaptations and how they want to rewrite the story and everything. They want to attract the mainstream audience. And I think what needs to be done is, as much as weird as it sounds, make it the way that it was the reason why the fans liked it in the first place. Because the
yeah,
reason why these people are fans is because they're probably video gamers to begin with, and probably the people who are going to watch some of these movies it's probably that they're not fans of it. It's that they've never been exposed to it because they
right,
probably don't play video games.
right,
But if you make it to where if a fan could go to a movie and most of the fans are like, "Yep, that's exactly part how the game is done. That's a good adaptation, rather a faithful adaptation." Then I think the people who don't play games are gonna probably like it too.
yeah. I
And
I
so
I agree.
I just
I
think that
agree. But I mean, look, I think if studios, I mean, because at the end of the day, these studios, they need to make money. I mean, that's just the bottom line is. I mean, you look at Disney, you look at
Yeah.
Warner Bros. Discovery with DC. I mean, at the end of the day, they need to make money, and so whether that's pushing out the schlock, bad adaptations or good adaptations, you know, it, I mean, it's a gamble for the most part.
Then
But
maybe you don't need to have all these big name actors. I mean, look at Last of Us.
yeah,
I know we're trying to be. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but pretty much you got Nick Offerman and you got Pedro Pascal, and
probably
they're
the two biggest
probably
actors in
the only
in
two
that
biggest
show.
A-list actors, really. So, and imagine in his thing, they probably don't command that. I can't imagine. I'm not their agent. I don't know, but they don't seem like the type of person that is going to command that much
Hmm.
money to do a project like that. Maybe they're not the people like, you got to pay me 13 million to do this, or I'm not going to do it, or whatever.
Yeah,
Maybe they just enjoy the craft and respect the craft
yeah,
enough
and
that,
it's like
yeah, sure.
it's like uh again to close out, but like with RDJ coming back as Doctor Doom, we mentioned it in the last episode. He's getting like 80 million for that for both Doomsday and Secret Wars. Like that's crazy. Like does he really deserve the 80 million dollars? That's a different conversation. But it's like, but you have like people like Henry Cavill. Loves the Witcher series. He was happy to do the Witcher show for as long as he did. Same thing. He really wants to get a Warhammer 40K movie or
Yeah.
show off the ground. Because he's a huge fan of that. So I mean, I think if studios just trust the creative process, because a lot of these decisions are being made by people in suits, executives that not
Exactly.
really,
We probably don't
or they're
even
not,
watch the movies they
yeah,
make.
they don't even watch the movies they make, or they don't play the games, or that kind of stuff. Read the comics. So like having people who care for these characters, who care for the
Exactly.
worlds, who cares for even bringing people, if you're adapting a video game, bring in the writers from that video game. Why are you going to get Hollywood actors? I mean, Hollywood writers, which, they deserve work too, but like, why are you going to get into like writers who have no ties to the original write a treatment for the adaptation, right? I think if they
My thing
just,
is, because there's another thing too. I mean, there's probably in these video games, there's probably like the people who wrote those games, there's probably already a script for it. So
yeah.
it's probably not going to be
Do you
that
know,
much different to transfer that game script to a film script.
right?
It's probably not going to be that different.
Same thing with novels, right? Like I mean, me and you are writers. I feel like I probably write more than you, I think,
Yeah,
generally. But like I've started writing novels, or like writing, like working on novels, writing. But at the same time, I'm also working on a screenplay, and like I'm making sure that like if I ever finish this novel, I already have a screenplay written that I've adapted from my own work. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And I mean they've done that. They did that with Twilight. They brought the author of Twilight, J.K. Rowling, did some writing on the Harry Potter movies. Same thing with the late Suzanne Collins, who wrote the Hunger Games. She wrote the screenplay for some of those movies. So I mean, like,
And
it
that's probably
happens.
why they received fairly well for what they
Right.
did.
And I mean, it happens. I mean, obviously, book adaptation to film is different than video game to, because they're just different mediums. But
Yeah,
it
so it's
happens.
mostly a subjective thing, but I think that even with that subjectivity, there's still a level where people are like, okay, that's still pretty true to faith. That's
Yeah.
pretty faithful to the
Yeah.
story, rather than like Resident Evil, where it's just a bastardized fantasy of Resident. It's only Resident Evil in name. Outside
Mm-hmm.
of the name Resident Evil and showing the Umbrella Corporation here and there, it has absolutely fuck all to do with actual Resident Evil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we had a good discussion today. I feel like there's obviously we could talk about this topic for
Oh yeah, let's
hours, but
give it a couple months. We could probably do a part two.
yeah, we'll wait till we'll probably reconvene with this when Last of Us 2 comes out.
You can
I
wait till
think
Last
that'll
of Us
be
level.
maybe yeah, Secret Level and like Sonic 3, like when all of that stuff kind of comes out and is out in the world, we can discuss this again. But Rafael, thank you for joining me this week on Fandom Friendly. As
Absolutely.
always,
Thanks for having me.
I enjoy having you around. You guys will see him more and more as we continue this show, because we're in a bunch of different fandoms, so it just makes sense that we will continue this. But yeah, anyways, guys, if you like this content or if you agree or disagree with a lot of the topics we discussed today, particularly about some of the opinions we have on some of these adaptations, please let me know in the comments below. Just make sure it's healthy discussion. I know a lot of people really love their video game properties and their fandoms, and we just want to be respectful as much as we can. But other than that, I mean, that'll be it for this week. Again, great episode, I think, and I look forward to talking more about this type of stuff. So, any closing thoughts, Rafael, before we end it?
No, I think I've said all that needs to be said.
Yeah, I think we both said all that needs to be said. All right, guys. Well, that'll be it for this episode. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. My name is Jorvik. I'll see you in the next one.
Rafael, nice to meet you.